let's dive into staking. Okay, so altcoins, these alternative tokens. We're looking at Bitcoin, of course, as being the main time chain, and of course altcoins meaning just other blockchain tokens or coins. And not to be mistaken, not to mix the two up essentially, but like it's very fascinating that we have this whole tokenomics concern, tokens being inflated or issued, and we've spoken about that several times. But this is something that makes or breaks a project and entices people to stake, to buy, so essentially, and to hold essentially. So a lot of times you can buy your tokens, buy your coins, whether it be Ethereum or perhaps XRP, CRV, HBAR, other tokens like Super, and you name it. There are just countless tokens, Brett, goodness gracious, you name it. But a lot of these protocols, such as Shadow on Sonic, or perhaps 1inch Exchange, or Uniswap, they've got Unichain, and there's so many tokens out there, so many blockchain coins as well. But the benefit to holding them and locking them up, staking them for a specific period of time, or for whatever period of time, is that you get emissions, you get rewards. So for example, if we're looking at a DEX or a decentralized exchange, you may lock up your tokens in the protocol somehow and earn yield. Okay, there are many ways of staking. Now there's staking and farming, so let's make that clear. So of course, farming is when you're adding multiple tokens into a basket, like let's say 2 tokens. So for example, USDC and let's just say CRV. Okay, so anybody who's swapping from USDC to CRV, they need that liquidity in the liquidity pool so that they can swap between the two. And the beautiful thing about decentralized finance, or DeFi, is that you and I, just the participants, we are the ones who actually help to create the pools. We are the ones that get rewarded for people swapping. We get X amount, essentially proportional to what we actually have in the pool. So if we hold 1% of the whole entire pool from ourselves, then of course we get 1% of the fees or the rewards sent to us. So sometimes it really doesn't matter. You don't have to hold a lot. And the good thing about staking is that, especially if you're a long-term holder, if you were buying through the bear market, just buying and staking, buying and staking, buying and staking, you're just going to keep getting more and more rewards. And of course, as you know, it's one of those wonders of the world where if you get your rewards and you compound, you get the rewards and compound, it just turns into so much more. Now that of course depends on if you're patient enough, and not to mention you have to trust the protocol. This is the tough part. So when we look at staking on Bitcoin, we're looking at something like best in slot, or BIS, for some of you who may be familiar with that. We got the best in slot artifacts and things like that. It's very fascinating that we have this ability now to stake on Bitcoin. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Also on Bitcoin, we have fluid tokens. So fluid tokens is also a protocol. They have staking and things. They also work with Cardano, which is another UTXO blockchain. It's very fascinating. So like staking on Bitcoin is real. Smart contracts through BRC 2.0 and Alkanes, and I'm sure much more to come over time. Like I always say, Bitcoin is a very interesting situation where you have so many different token standards, and of course more to come. And it's highly likely that these different token standards are just going to essentially create their own ecosystems, kind of like maybe Avalanche or the Cosmos ecosystem or Polkadot, where you have this one main chain or hub that's used for security, but in it you have, connected to it, you have various protocols, various blockchains. Well, everything's going to be housed on Bitcoin essentially like that, but it's still fascinating that each of these different token standards can actually essentially become their own mini ecosystem. It's very, very fascinating. So yeah, staking is a very important thing, especially again if you're a long-term holder. Now, but that does introduce risk because it introduces trust, right? You have to trust these protocols, trust the smart contracts. You have to also remember to withdraw your assets and things like that. So we can dive, of course, deeper into farming and staking on a whole, just kind of in general. But staking allows you to essentially provide governance to the protocol. A lot of times you can stake and cast a vote, and of course your vote is weighted based on the amount of tokens or coins you have staked, perhaps even the duration. So we look at something, let's say for example Magic Eden, right? So Magic Eden started as this marketplace for NFTs, non-fungible tokens for Solana, eventually expanding much more to various ecosystems, where most of the volume on Magic Eden is essentially Bitcoin ordinals. But then also Magic Eden has its own wallet. Magic Eden has gone so far to the next level. And a lot of times, the reality is they do take quite a bit of a fee on every interaction on their chain, on their marketplace. So that does help to fuel or to fund their future developments. But even that, so you get the ME token for participating. If you stake it, you get more staking power. The longer you stake it and the more you stake your tokens is the more you get over time, right? So staking is for holding, and a lot of times I wouldn't recommend necessarily holding or staking anything at all unless you understand the token economics and you understand that there's more acquisition liquidity coming in, because you could stake and your value could just simply go down and down. Yeah, you may be getting more tokens, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the token value is going to ever go up. So that is one thing to always consider when it comes to staking and, just to learn this protocol. And again, you have to essentially trust this platform. So there have been many times where you can stake, and as a result of perhaps poor token economics or tokenomics, they decide to migrate their tokens. So now what happens? You're already staked. So you have to be paying attention to their social media accounts, whether you're in their server, their Discord server, or their X account, and you're following them, perhaps as Telegram or some other platform that's being used to disseminate information to the community. You have to be on the ball, because let's just say there's a situation where they decide to migrate. Perhaps they're migrating from Ethereum mainnet to Base, or perhaps they're migrating from some other, like say Polygon over to Base or Avalanche, let's just say for example. Yeah, you may have to withdraw your stake and then go through the portal or something where you actually deposit your tokens and then you receive an equal amount, with the new smart contract. But what if you actually are not paying attention? What if you're on vacation? What if you're just like, I believe in this protocol so much, I did so much research, I'm going to buy this token, I'm going to stake it for X amount of time, or I'm just going to lock it up and just walk away, come back 3 or 4 years later. Well, what if you missed the entire opportunity, the window to migrate? You hit them up in the Telegram, you get on the X account, and you're in the Discord opening a ticket, and they're just like, hey, sorry, we already put this announcement up 6 months ago, a year ago, and the window's closed now. So essentially your tokens can go to absolute zero. So staking can be really, really cool. Altcoin staking can be really, really lucrative and fantastic. At the same time, it could lead to something, essentially a situation where you totally lose your value. Now, some of the other benefits of staking could mean that you earn additional rewards. For example, let's look at something like Best in Slot on Bitcoin or Fluid Tokens on Bitcoin Cardano. For example, you can stake, and just because you staked your tokens and you use the platform, you can actually earn some other rewards, other tokens. So you stake this ordinal, or you stake this NFT, or you stake these tokens, and in return, you get a total different token. So I could, let's say, for example, open up a staking pool, and I have tokens of mine, or my own token, or some other token that I want to give away. And this particular pool, or this vault, sometimes they may call them vaults, right, could hold, let's say 10,000 tokens. So people could, deposit up to 10,000 tokens. And once that 10,000 token limit has been reached, the vault is closed. And if not reached, if that amount is not necessarily reached, either way, perhaps it's based on time. So X amount of time, or perhaps even, it's linked to blocks. So on Bitcoin, a lot of times certain things will be triggered based on the block height, right? So very, very interesting stuff. But either way, you can actually get rewards for staking. It doesn't necessarily mean that you, for example, stake the AR token or AR coin and you get AR in return. Sometimes it's like, hey, stake this rune token or this BRC20, let's just say sats, stake these sats BRC20 and you will receive fill in the blank with another token in return. So sometimes it's not necessarily a direct return in the same token. It really depends, because the protocols can allow users like you and I to create staking pools, and vaults, let's say, where anybody that participates gets rewards. This is actually a very fantastic or very interesting way to get people to acquire your token. So if you create a BRC20, let's just say, for example, BRC20 token, and you want people to actually obtain it, you could say, hey, I'm going to create a vault, and if you deposit X other token, so let's say you want to get people from a different community to get your token, you can give a reward or an incentive and say, hey, if you deposit this token, let's give the example of Dog, right? Dog is one of the most popular rune tokens, a huge army of people talking about it. It's the most hated and the most loved rune token of all. But if you want Dog holders to actually have your token, you could create a vault where you say, hey, if you deposit Dog, you will earn my token as a reward. And of course, the beautiful thing about something like Best in Slot that allows you to stake or to lock up your ordinals is that once you lock them up, you pay the fee, but the actual ordinal is returned to your wallet. So the beautiful thing there is you don't necessarily have to trust this protocol. And as a matter of fact, you can just do the whole set it and forget it method, which is fantastic. So check out these APRs and check out these APYs, right? The annual percentage rate, the annual percentage yield, it's fantastic because sometimes you can actually compound and make even more. Like I said, this is like accumulating throughout the bear market, and staking the whole time is essentially the best way to get the biggest return when the bull market is in full steam, right? So I would definitely say do your own research, make sure you believe in the protocol. Not only that, you have to actually keep up with their developments to ensure that you're not getting left behind if in fact they have to migrate or if some type of pool is closed for some reason. Now, a lot of these deprecated pools will actually be available still for you to withdraw, even if they are closed or if they're timed out, or if they've ended or expired. A lot of times you may have to find the right link to get to the old version of the website, but essentially, the best way to do it simply is to pay attention, keep up with these protocols, or the best way, truthfully, aside from that is definitely the best way, but another way that's also reasonable is just to choose a protocol that is popular, the main DEX. So for example, Aerodrome on Base, or Uniswap on Ethereum, or perhaps Shadow on Sonic as an example, or Best in Slot on Bitcoin, something like that. These are protocols that people trust and people believe in, and it's highly unlikely that these protocols are going to disappear anytime soon. They take so much volume every day. They're legit. They've been battle tested. So a lot of these, again, it's likely that it's totally fine. You could just stake on their platforms and get a reward, or go directly to the website of the app of the token and see if there actually is available, staking protocols directly on their websites, things like that, right? So make the most. Links in description. Get a free consultation, and let's keep winning together.